gotta get in front right now.
Yep. All right, here is my audience for my policy persuasive speech. I have 5 sitting right there, and there's my 6th.
All the way?
Wherever you can see me. Turn it around so you can see me. Thank you. Now can you see me?
Yes.
All right. Well, my name is Kathleen Olson, and I'm going to talk about recycling today. Did you know that the United States of America only makes up about 5% of the population of the world, yet the U.S. creates more than 30% of the waste, total waste in the world. So, one country, 30% of the waste. It's an insane amount. The United States needs to create a federal law making it mandatory to recycle and making recycling more accessible to citizens across the U.S., as well as providing funding to restructure the recycling industry. In this speech, I'm going to talk about why recycling can be difficult and confusing, what can be done about it, and the benefits to putting laws in effect that would require recycling. There are 3 issues I am going to talk about today. The amount of waste that Americans create in a year is astounding and absolutely needs to change. Unfortunately, there's also a lot of confusion that goes along with recycling because there is no uniform way of doing it. Like, nobody's in charge of it. It's a whole bunch of separate little companies that do it. If the federal government would pass a law allowing funding to help reorganize the recycling industry and to make recycling more accessible to all, it would create an environment where people would want to recycle more. There is no denying that the earth is being polluted by human beings, and something must change in order to prevent damage that is being done. If there was a unified way of recycling with clear guidelines, people would be more willing to do so, and the amount of waste would decrease, which would be good for everybody. Every year, the average American creates 1,596 pounds of waste per person. All of us are guilty of doing this. However, since there is no unified way of recycling and there's no good labeling system out there, this leads to confusion, and most people cannot recycle. They can't recycle to their best ability because they don't understand how to do it correctly. The last law that was passed by Congress concerning solid waste disposal was passed in 1976, and it was called the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. This act addressed very little concerning recycling, and it is now 2017. We have had no legislation about this kind of thing in that long. That's a very long time. Although people across the nation and the world are trying to start to fix the issue by trying to create labeling of recycling receptacles that are all the same kind of labels so they can be recognized, there are still issues where we have not reached the amount of action to start taking down the damage that we've already done. With little funding available to companies for recycling and the continuing confusion about how and what to recycle, many recycling companies have started to shut down. So even though people keep recycling and they keep putting things in the bins, basically that stuff is going nowhere because the companies that take care of it are shutting down. Many argue that it would be too expensive to revamp the entire infrastructure of recycling in the United States, and approximately it would cost about $1.25 billion, which is a lot of money. But here's the thought: in 2013 alone, $600 billion was spent on our national defense fund. Now, I'm not saying we should take away money from the military. That's not what I'm saying at all. All I'm saying is that it would only take 1/600th of that budget to fix the recycling problems currently in the United States. Now that we have discussed what the problem is, let's talk solution. There needs to be a federal law that allocates funding for recycling to help create a unified system that is easily and accessible to the public. If everyone does not have access to recycling, the rest, everybody else, people are still going to just kind of let it go. They're going to say, it's too much work, why bother? The problem with recycling, especially for myself and many others I've talked to, is that there's no clear way to do it. For instance, if you live in an apartment like I do, there is not always easy access to recycle. We don't have recycling bins outside. What used to be at like grocery stores and things like that where you could just dump stuff off, those have all disappeared, pretty much. Recycle Across America is a nonprofit organization that is trying to push a unified recycling labeling system to make recycling easier and more accessible to people. So, what happens if we all start recycling? If as a whole, the nation started recycling, many benefits would occur. If we can get recycling up to 75% of waste, so only 75%, it could create 1.5 million jobs in our economy. So it would feed the economy.
Daddy?
Furthermore, if recycling reaches 75%, it would be the equivalent of taking 55 million cars off of the road. It would take that much CO2 out of the air. And obviously, people aren't going to stop driving anytime soon. So it makes more sense to start focusing on recycling. The more recycling that happens means less waste in landfills, less pollution, and reusing resources that are finite. So things like glass and stuff, we will reuse those to remanufacture products. It's cheaper, it's easier, it makes sense. So in conclusion, the U.S. federal government needs to pass a law providing funding for recycling across the U.S. and help create a more unified recycling system because there is no system in place right now. Funding is needed to restructure the recycling practices, and there are many benefits to recycling from job creation to pollution reduction. And if you guys would like to do anything about this, I suggest you go to www.recyclingacrossamerica.org. They have a lot of good information on this. And all of my statistics and information and speech came from the Recycling Coalition of Utah, The Economist newspaper, and also Business Ethics magazine.